Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 142 based on novel. So let's start. Fei Tian violently shot into the interior of the tent like a cannonball. A fierce force exploded at this moment. One could hear a ripping sound and the tent was actually blasted into countless number of fragments that danced in the sky. It immediately fell slowly. Seeing that Xiao Yang was actually this ruthless in his attack, the surrounding experts from the Lightning Pavilion were also stunned. For an instant, no one actually dared to say anything. Young fellow, you are really bold. The tent was blasted apart. It appeared as though those within it were stunned by this action of Xiao Yang. A moment later, someone finally recovered. A furious roar that was filled with the desire to kill resounded over this entire sky. The current Bone Mountain range had already been filled by an endless sea of people. There were people everywhere. When Xiao Yang's group was charging over with surging killing intent, quite a number of people became aware that there was about to be a good show. Hence, rushing wind sound appeared in this entire sky the moment this roar sounded. In the blink of an eye, numerous figures had appeared in the sky around the mountain. The eyes of these people glanced onto the mountain top. After which, they saw the tent that was forcefully ripped apart. In an instant, a surprise surged within everyone's eyes. The Lightning Pavilion could be considered to be quite a strong faction on the Central Plains. Otherwise, they would not possess the qualification to occupy a mountain top as a campsite here. It was unexpected that there was actually someone who dared to openly attack. How could this not cause them to feel shock and curious? Xiao Yang ignored those observers that had suddenly appeared around the place. His eyes looked towards the part of the tent that had been broken. Lightning Zun Zhe, whom he had met long ago, was currently standing with a gloomy face. At this moment, his hand was grabbing Fei Tian's robes. There were two old men in beast robes beside Lightning Zun Zhe. However, these two people did not open their mouths at this moment. Instead, they chose to stand idly by the side and observe the situation. Fei Tian, who was in Lightning Zun Zhe's hand, spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His dim eyes contained an expression of disbelief. The strength that Xiao Yang had displayed earlier had definitely reached the Dozun class. Even though he had seen it with his own eyes, he was still unable to believe it. This younger generation whom he had chased until the point where the former could only hide like a mouse had currently reached the Dozun class before him. Xiao Yang, you are really bold. Back then, this venerable self had let you off on account of Feng Zun Zhe. Yet, you actually dare to deliver yourself today? Lightning Zun Zhe's face was dark and solemn. He slowly placed Fei Tian in his hand down. His low and deep thunder-like voice was filled with killing intent. The Lightning Pavilion was used to being overbearing during these years. Currently, they were being bullied by a younger generation in such a place. If he let the matter today rest, he would really lose all of his face. Although he spoke in this manner with his mouth, the shock in Lightning Zun Zhe's heart was currently not any less than Fei Tian. He was extremely clear about Xiao Yang's strength back then. The latter was merely a younger generation who had just advanced to the Dozun class. At that time, the status of the latter in Lightning Zun Zhe's heart was not much higher than that of an ant. Yet, within a short 2 to 3 years, the younger generation from back then had actually soared to the Dozun class. Being an expert of the Dozun class, Lightning Zun Zhe naturally understood just how difficult it was to leap across this step. Fei Tian might currently be at the peak of the Dozun class, but if he lacked the luck, it was not a rare occurrence for him to remain at that level forever. It was also because of the difficulty of taking this step that his heart would feel that shocked when he saw the current Xiao Yang for the first time. Lightning Zun Zhe really knows how to joke. Back then, it is just that the skill of the Lightning Pavilion disciple being inferior to others. It is completely unrelated to your magnanimity. Xiao Yang laughed softly. Back then, Lightning Zun Zhe was an elite Dozun whom he could not match in his eyes. Now, however, this high existence that he could not reach back then, was no longer even the least bit strong and mysterious in his heart. Lightning Zun Zhe's face twitched. The fury within his eyes also became increasingly rich. He spoke in a dense manner, "We have not met for a couple of years, but your tongue is still as sharp as ever. This venerable self shall advise you to leave as soon as possible. On the account of Feng Zun Zhe, this venerable self shall not make a fuss about this matter with you, this younger generation." Lightning Zun Zhe has joked again. "Your Lightning Pavilion has attacked my Falling Star Pavilion in front of so many people. Could this also be because of Feng Zun Zhe's face?" Xiao Yang laughed. That mocking tone also caused some laughter to appear around the mountain top. Lightning Zun Zhe slowly clenched his fist. His eyes stared intently at Xiao Yang as he ended up laughing from extreme anger. Good, looks like you have come prepared today. In that case, this venerable self shall see just what you, as someone who has just entered the Dozun class, can do today. Nothing much. All I am going to do is to retrieve the Falling Star Pavilion campsite." Xiao Yang smiled slightly. He slowly stepped forward. Purple-brown flame slowly surged. The temperature of this entire place swiftly increased as the flame rose. In that case, we'll have to see whether you possess such qualification. Le Zun Zhe laughed furiously. Bright silver lightning glow flickered over his body. Countless number of electric snakes danced. Looking from a distance, it appeared as though a thunder god had descended. His aura was extremely shocking. Seeing the atmosphere between the two swiftly becoming a tense sword-drawn one, the eyes of the many experts around also became fiery hot. A Do Zun class battle would be quite an interesting one. This Xiao Yang is really arrogant. He actually dares to oppose Le Zun Zhe. Looks like he is here to find trouble. Earlier, the Lightning Pavilion had forcefully chased the Falling Star Pavilion away and had even injured someone. I thought that the Falling Star Pavilion will definitely not just swallow this offense. It is unexpected that they have come so quickly. It is not so easy to find this trouble. This place not only have Le Zun Zhe present. Moreover, have you seen the two old men beside Le Zun Zhe? Those are the tribe leaders of the Earth Tiger tribe and the Silver Moon Wolf tribe. They are the subsidiary tribe of the Heaven Demon Phoenix. Given the relationship between the Lightning Pavilion and the Heaven Demon Phoenix, do you think that the two of them will just stand idly by the side? 3 elite Do Zuns whose strength had reached the peak of 2 stars. This trouble is made of metal. However, this Xiao Yang's name is a little familiar. Damn it, how can it not be familiar? Isn't that the young alchemist who had become the champion of the pill gathering conducted by the Pill Tower? It is unexpected that he would actually appear in this place after disappearing for over a year. Xiao Yang acted as though he did not notice these surrounding eyes that had suddenly become fiery hot. Purple-brown flame rose on his body. Back then, the Do Zun pressure that seemed undefeatable was currently unable to deter him by even a little. This young friend. The matter today is just a misunderstanding. The matter of the two friends from the Falling Star Pavilion is merely because Pavilion Chief Fei Tian is too irritable and had accidentally hurt them when attacking. Moreover, Pavilion Chief Fei Tian is currently injured by you. These matters can more or less make up for each other. Therefore, I will like to trouble young friend to stop on account of the Earth Tiger tribe and the Silver Moon Wolf tribe. What do you say? When the atmosphere became increasingly tense, an old man in tiger pattern robes, who had remained quiet by the side, finally laughingly said. The lightning glow on Le Zun Zhe's body was withdrawn slightly when he heard the old man speak. He spoke faintly. Since the tribe leader of the Earth Tiger tribe had opened his mouth, this venerable self will naturally give you face. This matter. Since this old mister has put it this way, Le Zun Zhe, please. Xiao Yang smiled slightly. He gently waved his hand and the Falling Star Pavilion disciples behind him formed a pathway that led to the foot of the mountain. The face of Le Zun Zhe immediately became gloomy upon seeing this scene. The smile on the tiger-robed old man's face also solidified. He said, "This young friend, must you really do things in such an extreme manner? The Lightning Pavilion had destroyed the reputation of my Falling Star Pavilion in public. This old mister, are you intending to allow my face to carry this slap back to the Falling Star Pavilion?" The smile on Xiao Yang's face was slowly withdrawn. A fierce glint flashed within his dark black eyes. Faced with this Xiao Yang, whose demeanor had suddenly become forceful, Le Zun Zhe and the two beast-robed elders also had a slight change in their expressions. A chillness immediately surged in their eyes. Good fellow, you actually possess such boldness in the face of 3 Do Zuns. You are indeed worthy of being the pill-gathering champion. Xiao Yang's sudden uncharacteristic slight smile and politeness also caused everyone to be shocked. Immediately, some low cheer sounded. I do not care about just how outstanding you are in the human world. However, this place is the beast region. It is not a place where you can behave atrociously. The tiger robe old man's expression became icy cold as he spoke in a deep voice. Leave this place and we can let the matter rest. Otherwise, even if Feng Zun Zhe is here today, I will let you, this younger generation, understand just where is this place. The other silver-haired old man with brutal eyes also spoke in a dense manner. After his words sounded, 2 vast and mighty aura also suddenly surged out from within the bodies of those two. Immediately, it swept apart like a storm. It caused the expressions of those surrounding experts to change slightly. All of them hurriedly withdrew. 3 elite Do Zuns stood tall on this mountain top. That frightening pressure was just like a tall mountain that crushed onto Xiao Yang's group. Xiao Yang slowly exhaled a breath of air when faced with this frightening pressure. Immediately, he once again took 2 steps forward in front of everyone's eyes. His finger still continued to point towards the foot of the mountain. A low and deep voice resounded beside everyone's ears like a muffled thunder. This is the final time I'm saying this. Roll down from here or descend while lying down. Xiao Yang's icy cold voice slowly fell. 3 hidden frightening aura behind him also erupted without holding back at this moment. The appearance of these 3 auras had basically forcefully scattered the energy pressure that pounced over in an instant. Rumble. Faced with the sudden retaliation from such a frightening aura, the expressions of Lei Zunzhe's group immediately changed. Their feet also hurriedly took 2 steps back. 4 dozuns. 4 vast and mighty auras were entangled like an enormous dragon. The powerful pressure formed at that moment not directly shook Lei Zunzhe trio until they took 2 continuous steps back, but the faces of those Wind Lightning Pavilion experts around them also became ghastly pale. Even their breathing had become heavy. Their eyes were also covered with shock. The majestic aura that suddenly erupted also stirred an uproar around the place. Everyone was stunned as they looked at Little Fairy Doctor's 3 people group, which was standing behind Xiao Yang. At this moment, they finally discovered that the 3 people, who kept an unusually low profile while quietly standing behind Xiao Yang, were actually also genuine Dozun class expert. In this way, if one included Xiao Yang himself, 4 elite Dozuns would have appeared on the Falling Star Pavilion's side. This kind of lineup was far from what the Wind Lightning Pavilion could compare with. Lei Zunzhe's body quickly paused after having taken 2 steps back. His eyes contained a shocked expression as he looked at the 3 people behind Xiao Yang. Other than that unfamiliar-looking strong man, he discovered that the beautiful young lady and the old man beside her had actually reached the peak of the 3-star Dozun class. Such strength was definitely not any weaker than him. How is this possible? Since when did the Falling Star Pavilion possess so many elite Dozuns? A great storm brewed within Lei Zunzhe's heart. Most of those which could become a renowned faction in the Central Plains did indeed possess some hidden foundation. However, it had also been some centuries since his Wind Lightning Pavilion had been founded. If one was to count, its history was even longer than that of the Falling Star Pavilion. Yet, the foundation to take out 3 Dozun class expert offhand was a little overly rich. Those 2 beast-robe old men beside Lei Zunzhe also had a slight change in expression at this moment. Finally, they began to felt that things were troublesome. 4 Dozuns. Even if one sum up the peak experts from both their clans, it was likely that they would not make such a figure. Under the pressure of this vast and mighty aura, the atmosphere on the mountain top had also become a lot more constrained. The Wind Lightning Pavilion disciples, who were still proud earlier, were looking at each other at this moment. They did not dare to make any unusual movement. This friend, that old man in tiger robes, widened his mouth. He wanted to say something but could only wisely keep his mouth shut after seeing Xiao Yang's icy cold face. He turned his head and looked at the increasingly gloomy-looking Lei Zunzhe beside him. In this current situation, it was obvious that the Wind Lightning Pavilion was at a disadvantage. It would be fine if they leave as soon as possible. Should a battle end up occurring and they were forcefully thrown out, they would only end up losing even more face. Lei Zunzhe's expression was as deep as water. His eyes were staring intently at Xiao Yang. A moment later, he finally clenched his teeth and said, "Great brat. If I knew this back then, I would have personally killed you." Xiao Yang smiled slightly, ignoring this kind of hindsight that had occurred many years later. Go. That smile of Xiao Yang caused Lei Zunzhe's heart to erupt into an endless fury after the latter saw it. However, in this current situation, he also understood that with the strength of Xiao Yang's group, it was sufficient to forcefully throw them down the mountain. A hero did not seek to suffer an obvious loss. The experts from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had yet to arrive. At that time, there would naturally be the opportunity for this little bastard to cry. Lei Zunzhe waved his hand after forcefully suppressing the fury in his heart. After which, he walked towards the mountain road that led to the foot of the mountain with a gloomy expression. The many Wind Lightning Cloud disciples behind him also kept their tents in a depressed manner before following him like dogs that had lost their homes. Xiao Yang, it is too early for you to be happy. This venerable self will come and seek payment for the trouble today. Lei Zunzhe paused and spoke in a dense low voice when he was passing by Xiao Yang. I will await you any time. Xiao Yang smiled and said. Lei Zunzhe's face twitched upon seeing this situation. He suddenly waved his sleeve and led the entire group away. A cheer immediately erupted amongst the disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion as they watched the miserable-looking Wind Lightning Pavilion disciples withdrawing from this place. Their eyes contained some additional respect when they looked at Xiao Yang. When their pride was stepped on by others, Xiao Yang had led them to regain their pride. At this moment, these disciples felt for the first time that the Falling Star Pavilion might become increasingly strong if they had such a junior pavilion chief. Mu Qingluan, whose emotions had been tensed, also quietly sighed in relief. She secretly glanced at Xiao Yang by the side. This fellow was not even the least bit afraid even when faced an expert renown in the Central Plains like Lei Zunzhe. This point was completely different from a couple of years ago. Set up the tents first. Xiao Yang smilingly said. Understood. The orders of Xiao Yang at this moment undoubtedly had some weight within the hearts of the Falling Star Pavilion's disciples. Hence, all the disciples from the Falling Star Pavilion responded in unison after hearing him speak. They immediately scattered and once again set up the tents. Seeing that this fight for a campsite on this mountain top was finally over, those human figures in the surrounding sky finally shook their heads while not feeling satisfied. after which, they scattered. The big battle that they had anticipated the most did not erupt. This caused them to feel a little depressed. Xiao Yang, although we have frightened off the Lightning Pavilion today, they will definitely be unwilling to crush their teeth and swallow them. Therefore, you should be careful. Mu Qingluan reminded. Yes. Xiao Yang nodded slightly. He said, our main aim is the soul baby fruit. No matter what happens, we must obtain this thing. If the Lightning Pavilion really wished to intervene, they should not blame us for being ruthless. Mu Qingluan nodded slowly as she looked at the chillness flickering on the young face. She said, I am not worried about the Lightning Pavilion. This place is after all the beast region. The Lightning Pavilion has a good relationship with the Heaven Demon Phoenix. If they were to intervene at that time, we will deal with the situation accordingly when trouble arise. Even if today's event did not occur, the Heaven Demon Phoenix will still attack if they view me as an eyesore. Xiao Yang smiled randomly. He slowly walked to the edge of the mountain top. His eyes were narrowed as he looked at the middle of the mountain range. That direction is the place where the ancient remains has appeared this time around. Xiao Yang nodded slightly. He could sense that there was some distorted arc in that space. Clearly, the owner had placed an extremely powerful barrier on the ancient remains. There are many dangers within this ancient remains. Quite a number of extremely powerful ancient puppets guards that place. Additionally, there are also some strange traps. Even an elite Dozun will not dare to be careless. Elder who was behind Xiao Yang, spoke respectfully. The ancient remains is hidden within a spatial seal. Every once in a while, some crack lines will appear on the spatial ripple. Quite a number of powerful people has barged in during this period of time. However, most of them ended up escaping miserably from it. Oh! Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows. It seemed that this ancient remains must still not be underestimated despite it having experienced such a great amount of time. However, no elite Dozuns has entered it up till now. This spatial seal possessed a restriction ability. If an elite Dozun tries to forcefully enter, it will trigger an extremely powerful seal backlash. A seal that is placed by an elite Dosheng is not something that an ordinary Dozun would dare to test with his body despite the seal having experienced countless amount of time. No Dozuns has entered. Xiao Yang frowned immediately when he heard this. Did that not mean that he was also unable to enter? Junior Chief need not be worried. This seal is already extremely thin. At the very most, the seal will gradually scatter after a few more days. Without the defense of the seal, elite Dozuns will also be able to safely enter it. Currently, there are quite a number of elite Dozuns around the ancient remains who are waiting for this moment. Elder who fondled his beard and smilingly explained. Xiao Yang sighed in relief only after hearing this. His eyes swept over the surrounding lush green mountains. With his sharp spiritual perception, he could indeed sense some extremely vague majestic aura. A surprise involuntarily flashed across his eyes at this moment. It was indeed worthy of being an ancient remains. This many elite Dozuns were actually attracted by it. It appeared that a bloody fight would be unavoidable in this remains battle. Did you discover anyone from the Hall of Souls? A thought suddenly passed through Xiao Yang's heart as he asked. Elder who frowned slightly upon hearing this. He voiced his thoughts, I have not seen them until now. However, those fellows are usually strange and unpredictable. Even if they have come, it is likely that the two of us will not be able to discover them. However, based on the guess of the old me, the rumors about this ancient remains is spread quite widely. The Hall of Soul will likely also intervene. However, we do not know just how many experts has come. Xiao Yang smiled slightly and nodded. A chillness flashed across his eyes. The ones whom you need to be worried about in this Bone Mountain range is not the Hall of Soul. Being the owners of this place, the 9 serene deep-ground python are the most troublesome to deal with. Not only did these fellows possess a large number, but there are many experts amongst them. Even the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe is unwilling to exchange blows with them. However, I feel that things are a little strange. This place can be considered the territory of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. Given their character, they actually did not choose to seal off the mountain range. Instead, they had allowed this news to spread. Mu Qingluan softly spoke in a somewhat doubtful manner. 9 serene deep-ground python, Xiao Yang muttered to himself. He also nodded slightly. By being able to become one of the 3 great tribes of the magical beast world, this 9 serene deep-ground python was definitely not an ordinary faction. Currently, the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe is unable to even take care of themselves. Where would they find the effort to come and manage this ancient remains? Elder who shook his head and laughed when he heard this. Unable to take care of themselves? What has happened? Mu Qingluan asked in surprise. I am also not certain about this. However, from the information that we have inquired, some of the experts from the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe has disappeared in a baffling manner recently. An elite Dozun from the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe is included amongst these missing experts. Currently, They are crazily searching for the murderer. The thing that is really unbelievable is that the one who has attacked the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe is actually alone. Elder who fondled his beard and sighed. The expressions of Xiao Yang and Mu Qingluan were that of being shocked upon hearing these words. Just who was this strong person who actually dared attack the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe? Elder who smiled as he looked at the surprised expression of Xiao Yang and Mu Qingluan. He said, "This matter has caused an uproar all over the place recently. Many people were very curious just what kind of great being that murderer is. He actually dares to attack the 9 serene deep-ground python, the local ruler of this beast region. It was really touching, something that one should not touch." Xiao Yang nodded slightly. By being able to become one of the 3 great tribes in the magical beast world, it was sufficient to indicate the strength of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. As the saying went, a powerful dragon did not suppress the local snake. Even the renowned great factions on the Central Plains would give the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe some face in this place. Unless one's mind was a little mad, otherwise, one would not easily offend them. It was also because of this that Xiao Yang would feel so surprised when he heard that there was actually someone who was finding trouble with the 9 serene deep-ground python in the Bone Mountains. Perhaps it is just some enemies from the past. Mu Qingluan hesitated before commenting. Who knows, if it is an enemy, he would definitely eradicate the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. However, from the rumors that had spread during this period of time, the opponent of that fellow was completely the strongest experts within the 9 serene deep-ground python. The lives of some of the weaker ones were not taken even when they met that mysterious killer. Elder who laughed bitterly. He was also extremely confused about this strange tactic of the mysterious killer. Xiao Yang also frowned slightly upon hearing this. This person was indeed quite strange. As the saying went, it is easy to pinch a soft persimmon. However, this person did things in an opposite fashion. He purposefully found the troublesome opponents. Was this not trying to make things difficult for himself? Those 9 serene deep-ground python experts who had met that mysterious killer had all disappeared without exception. It was impossible to even find their corpse. This was the aspect that caused the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe to panic a little. The most important thing of a tribe was its bloodline. No one knew if that mysterious killer is preparing for something by gathering so much 9 serene deep-ground python blood. Elder who said, "Forget it, this matter is unrelated to us. Let's quietly stay on this mountain top for these few days and constantly monitor the activity of the ancient remains. Additionally, tell everyone not to walk around the place. The Bone Mountain Range is currently very chaotic. It would be troublesome if some matter is created." Xiao Yang mused for a moment. After failing to gain any conclusion, he could only shake his head. His thoughts were turned away from this matter as he opened his mouth and said, "Understood." Elder who hurriedly replied in a respectful voice when he heard this. "Next, we shall wait for the ancient remains to open." Xiao Yang's eyes leaped over the many mountain tops, looked towards the somewhat distorted space at the middle of the mountain range and softly muttered. After driving away the people from the Lightning Pavilion, Xiao Yang's group settled down and set up tent on this mountain top once again. During the subsequent few days, the disciples from the Falling Star Pavilion had obeyed Xiao Yang's orders. None of them left the mountain top. They spent their day training and sparring. In any case, the size of the mountain top was quite large. It was sufficient for their activities. During this quiet wait, Xiao Yang's group was also able to discover that the number of experts gathering at this Bone Mountain Range was also increasing. At the end, this entire mountain range was still lively even deep in the night. The noise directly charged to the clouds. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye amidst this kind of wait. During these 3 days, the Lightning Pavilion, which was thrust away in a miserable manner, did not come and seek trouble. Although Xiao Yang's group understood that Le Zun Zhe would definitely not be able to easily swallow this anger, he was at the very least aware that before he possessed the strength to defeat 4 Dozuns, he would not foolishly come and seek his own humiliation. Everyone had been passing these 3 days on the mountain top. They did not disturb anyone, nor did anyone disturb them. The laid-back waiting was undoubtedly much better than the surrounding mountain range that was filled with fiery hot conflict. With the gradual passage of the 3 days, the distorted space within the middle of the mountain range also became increasingly thin. Clearly, the spatial seal that had existed for countless number of years was about to disappear. The thinning seal also caused the atmosphere of the entire mountain range to become unusually fiery hot. Under the allure of the ancient remains, it appeared that everyone was much more hot-tempered. Even the slightest conflict would immediately be escalated to a life-and-death battle. Based on the rate at which the seal was changing, the seal would completely disappear in at the very most 2 days' time. At that time, the ancient remains that had existed for countless number of years would be once again revealed in this world. The night was as cool as water. The icy cold moonlight scattered down from the sky and shone onto the well-lit mountain range. It added a layer of mysterious yarn over the entire mountain range. Xiao Yang was seated on a large rock at the edge of the mountain top. From this spot, he was coincidentally able to overlook more than half of the mountain range. he could still see quite a number of human figures and torchlight flashing at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Yang raised his head and looked at the bright moon in the sky. His mind became a little absent-minded. An elegant and beautiful fit-looking figure vaguely appeared in front of him, appearing just like the fairy in the moon. Zun Zhe, wait for me. Once I have resolved the issue of teacher's body, I will begin traveling to the Jiyu clan. Xiao Yang's fist was clenched slowly. A determination flashed across his eyes. Regardless of just how mysterious and powerful the Jiyu clan was, it would definitely not hinder he and Zun Zhe from being together. The current Xiao Yang could already be truly considered as a top-tier expert in the Doqi continent. It was difficult for him to find any opponents from the same age group. With this hard work and achievement, he believed that he would definitely not lose even when faced with those young outstanding individuals from the Jiyu clan, who possessed the bloodline of a Do Di. Xiao Yang gently exhaled a breath. That graceful figure in his mind suddenly fluctuated without any warning. Immediately, a bewitching icy cold pretty face suddenly appeared. Kaylin. A complicated bitter smile surfaced on Xiao Yang's face as a beautiful and alluring face flashed across his mind. He softly muttered, I wonder, that child in her womb, has she been born? The moment he thought of this, Xiao Yang felt as though a tight string deep within his heart had been touched. Unexpectedly, the current him was soon about to become a father. He wondered if his father would wear his happiness on his brows if he was aware of this. A slight sound of wind being split suddenly resounded in the night sky while Xiao Yang was feeling absent-minded. This sound might be faint, but it was still sensed by Xiao Yang, who had an extremely sharp awareness. Immediately, he turned his head and saw a black figure diving down from the night sky like an old eagle. Both of this person's hands were placed together and a tent emitted a sound of being burst apart. After the tent burst apart, it revealed Zi Yang, who was in a deep sleep within it. However, the latter's perception was quite strong. She suddenly widened her eyes just when the tent was torn apart. A shock was felt when she looked at the black shadow pouncing over. Subsequently, she swiftly withdrew with her small feet. Who are you, thief? Xiao Yang was startled. A fury immediately surged up his eyes. His hand slammed the large rock under his body, after which, his body flew out like a large bird and pounced towards the black shadow person. When Xiao Yang approached, he began to gradually realize that the size of the black shadow was clearly delicate and small. One could even vaguely see some curves formed by her clothes. It indicated her background. A ferocious ghost-like mask was worn on her face, causing her to appear exceptionally mysterious. That black shadow appeared as though she did not hear Lin Dong's cry. A strange green light was suddenly erupted from under the ghost mask. This green light flashed and shone onto the face of Zi Yang, who was pulling back. Zi Yang felt her sight become blurry when the light shone over. Even her mind had become a little absent-minded. Raw. A purple chi suddenly surged over her face while Zi Yang's mind was absent-minded. A half-a-foot-long purple dragon surfaced. Immediately, it curled and rose while roaring furiously towards the sky. The dragon roar rose in a majestic manner and the green light collapsed almost instantly. Why is it not a snake? That black shadow with a ghost mask was immediately stunned when she saw the purple dragon on Zi Yang's face. Immediately, a slight dumbfounded voice sounded. Bang! The three tents around the entire place immediately burst apart while the black shadow was startled. Little fairy doctor, Tianhua Zunzhe and Xiong Zhon flashed and appeared. They saw the black shadow person attacking Zi Yang with a glance. All of their expressions immediately changed slightly. Watch after Zi Yang, Xiao Yang cried out in a deep voice. His body moved and he appeared in front of the black shadow person. He clenched his hand and the purple-brown flame was agglomerated into a large hand that violently slammed towards the latter's head. The black shadow figure hurriedly withdrew when faced with this ferocious attack by Xiao Yang. An unusual green glow flashed under the ghost mask. It easily received the large fire hand. Immediately, the figure moved and swiftly rushed out of the mountain top. Clearly, she was also aware that it was pointless to stay any longer. You wish to leave? Xiao Yang's face sunk when he saw this. This person was too unusual. Moreover, her target was clearly Zi Yang. If he did not capture and interrogate her, there would definitely be much trouble in the future. Silver light flashed under Xiao Yang's feet while this thought flashed across his heart. After which, it swiftly chased that black shadow person. His body moved and he appeared on the latter's head. Flame spread over his fist as it was once again violently smashed down. Upon sensing the fierce wind that erupted over from above her head, the green light under the ghost mask of the black shadow person once again flashed. Immediately, a strong black shadow suddenly appeared behind her in a strange fashion. Dark black water covered the fist of this figure as it immediately threw a violent punch that collided with the fire punch of Xiao Yang. Bang! A frightening storm spread when the two fists collided. Xiao Yang's body shook and he took a couple of steps back. That strong human figure took 2 continuous steps back before his body shook and once again disappeared in a strange manner. By the time Xiao Yang had recovered, that black shadow person had already rushed into the vast deep mountains. With the cover from the night, she disappeared within the blink of an eye. Xiao Yang was suspended in the night sky. His eyes looked towards the spot where the black shadow had disappeared towards. He frowned slightly. This person did not directly exchange blows with him. Therefore, he was unable to probe the other party's strength. However, that unusual green light caused him to feel some danger. I wonder where this person has come from. Why did she attack Zi Yang? Xiao Yang softly muttered to himself. Currently, an increasing number of experts were attracted to the ancient remains. There was an unknown number of hidden experts amongst them. It seemed that they really needed to be careful during this trip. A couple wind-splitting sound suddenly appeared while Xiao Yang was in deep thought. Immediately, a couple of figures swiftly rushed over. Their bodies paused when they were passing by. Their sharp eyes swept over Xiao Yang. There is the aura from that person here. Do we need to bring these people back for interrogation? The few figures paused. A fierce-looking young man's nose twitched slightly. His eyes contained a fierce glint as he suddenly looked towards Xiao Yang and said. Xiao Yang's eyes carefully observed these 4 people, who had appeared. All of their auras were quite strong. 3 amongst them had reached the peak of the Dozone class. The one leading them was already in the Dozun class. An obvious dark and chilly aura lingered over them, causing one to be afraid of slighting them. Members of the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe? Xiao Yang swept his eyes before pausing them on the special vertical pupils of these people. He narrowed his eyes as he muttered to himself within his heart. That scent has fled into the mountain forest. It is likely that she has exchanged blows with this person. The grey-robed old leader glanced at Xiao Yang in a hesitant manner. He could sense that the latter was also an elite Dozun. It was best not to cause any additional trouble at this moment. Hence, he shook his head and directly turned his eyes towards the mountain forest, where the black shadow had disappeared towards. He waved his hand and said, "Chase." He took the lead to move after uttering those words. His body transformed into a black shadow that rushed towards the forest. The 3 large men, with a murderous aura all over their bodies, closely followed from behind. The tribe members of the 9 serene deep-ground python are a little overbearing. Xiao Yang sent off this group with his eyes while laughing coldly within his heart. If his strength was a little weaker today, it was likely that these people would really choose to bring him back first before talking. Looks like the black shadow person from earlier should be the mysterious person who has turned the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe upside down recently. However, why would she attack Zi Yang? Xiao Yang mused for a moment while carrying this doubt within his heart. After which, he turned around and returned to the mountain top. At this moment, everyone on the mountain top had already been awakened due to the unexpected situation from earlier. Little fairy doctor's group hurriedly went forward to meet Xiao Yang upon seeing the latter's return. Xiao Yang landed and explained the matter earlier. Everyone had stunned faces when they heard that the attacker earlier was the mysterious killer who had caused an uproar recently. Doesn't that fellow purposefully target the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe? Why has she suddenly placed her focus on Zi Yang? Little fairy doctor knitted her brows slightly and softly asked. Xiao Yang also shook his head. He glanced at Zi Yang and laughed. Perhaps the other party has treated this girl as a 9 serene deep-ground python, who would be those smelly large snakes. Zi Yang curled her mouth. She immediately rubbed her brows and a solemn expression flashed across her small face. She said, "When the green light from that fellow shone over earlier, I feel like I was almost controlled by it. However, it is fortunate that I have the protection from my bloodline. Even though I will not be completely controlled by her, I will still lose my defensive ability for a short period of time." Xiao Yang's group was clearly startled when they heard these words. Zi Yang had merely come into a single contact with the black shadow person earlier. Yet she was actually nearly controlled by the other party. This person is really strange. She is actually able to control one's mind. Since when did such a mysterious expert appear in the Central Plains? Why have I never heard of such a person before? Tian Le Zun Zhe frowned and said, "Damn it, I will definitely burst her head the next time the old me meet her. If anything happened to this little grandaunt, the old me will also get into trouble." Xiong Zhong cursed. Xiao Yang revealed an expression of deep thought. He exchanged looks with little fairy doctor and softly said, "Zi Yang should avoid running around during this period of time. She will follow beside us. This person is too strange. Moreover, she has an unknown origin. We must not allow her to gain any opportunity. Based on my guess, those experts from the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe, who had disappeared, have likely been controlled by her." What? Everyone's faces paled from shock when these words sounded. There were some Dozun class experts from amongst those 9 serene deep-ground python experts that had disappeared. If that person was even able to control a Dozun, that would be a little too terrifying. Originally, I am able to stop her. However, an elite Dozun has stopped me at the critical moment. That elite Dozun's Do-Chi is tilted towards the dark and chilly side. It is similar to the expert from the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe earlier. Therefore, Xiao Yang voiced his thoughts. This kind of ability to control others is something that I have never heard before. Even some of those sonic Do technique that could confuse one's mind would have difficulty completely controlling an elite Dozun. Little fairy doctor shook her head and said. Xiao Yang also nodded. This world was indeed filled with mysteries. It was likely that the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe would suffer greatly by provoking such a mysterious person. Everyone should be more careful during these few days. The ancient remains will open the day after tomorrow. At that time, we will enter it at the earliest possible time. Otherwise, things will be troublesome if the soul baby fruit ends up being taken by someone first. Xiao Yang looked all around him and spoke in a deep voice. Understood. Everyone replied in Yuezhan upon hearing this. After that night's chaos, no other unexpected situation occurred. The sea of people on the Bone Mountain range multiplied. The noise similar charge into the clouds. Countless number of people were waiting for the ancient remains to open. 2 days quietly flowed by like the sand between one's fingers amidst this anticipation from the tens of thousands of gazers. By the time a ray of morning light scattered down from the sky and broke through the darkness covering the mountain range 2 days later, the mountain range, which had become a little quiet, had basically erupted into an earth-shaking liveliness in an instant. Rushing wind sound appeared from all directions. Numerous human figures rushed towards the middle of the mountain range like locust. Xiao Yang's group on the mountaintop was also fully prepared. Due to the entry into the ancient remains being too dangerous, only Xiao Yang's small group would be entering it. The disciples from the Falling Star Pavilion and the 2 elders would remain here and wait for them. Although many felt regretful at not being able to enter this rarely seen ancient remains, no one objected to Xiao Yang's order. Currently, the latter had gradually established his own prestige within the Falling Star Pavilion. Xiao Yang stood at the side of the mountaintop and looked at the human figures from all directions. He involuntarily shook his head. It was unexpected that this ancient remains actually had such a frightening attraction. Let's go. Xiao Yang did not hesitate much. He waved his hand and his body took the lead to transform into a ray of light that rushed towards the middle of the mountain range. Little fairy doctor and the rest followed closely behind him. At this moment, a liveliness that was quite shocking had undoubtedly erupted in the Bone Mountain range. The origin of these life force was the countless number of human figures flying in the air. Under this kind of frightening atmosphere, even the kind of dark and cold aura unique to the Bone Mountain range had been forcefully diminished. With Xiao Yang's exceptional perception, he could sense those vague aura around the mountain range, which had been silent for a long time, beginning to move at this moment. They turned into numerous rays of light that hurried to the mountain top. This ancient remains is truly going to have an intense fight. Even Xiao Yang involuntarily sighed softly upon sensing the strength of these aura. The difficulty of trying to successfully obtain the Tian class Do technique in front of these many experts was quite large. It was not difficult to imagine just what kind of earth-shaking bloody battle would erupt in this Bone Mountain range in order to obtain the Tian class Do technique. The mountain peak that Xiao Yang's group was at was already near the middle of the mountain range. Hence, after a mere couple of minutes, a distorted space appeared in front of their group's eyes. Xiao Yang's body moved as he watched the distorted space a short distance in front of him. He landed on a gigantic tree. After sweeping his eyes, he finally realized that this place had a 500-kilometer large basin. However, the current basin had already been filled by countless number of dense bones. Looking from a distance, the sea of dense white bones appeared quite glaring. It caused one to feel as though one's paws would stand. At this moment, some densely packed human figures stood around the sea of bones. Numerous heated eyes stared intently at the distorted space within the sea of bones. Once that spatial seal disappear, countless number of people would surge in continuously like a great wave. Xiao Yang's eyes swept over the surrounding sea of people. After which, it paused over some areas. His eyes were a little solemn. After a brief glance, he discovered that there were at least 5 elite 3 stars Do Zun. A Tian class Do technique does indeed possess an endless allure. Even elite Do Zuns are unable to withstand this allure. Xiao Yang sighed softly in his heart. He also possessed some desire towards the Tian class Do technique. However, he also understood within his heart just how difficult it was to successfully snatch the Tian class Do technique from this kind of place. The possessor of it would be a magnet for trouble. Even if an elite Do Zun was to obtain the Tian class Do technique, whether he could successfully leave this Bone Mountain range would also be a question. I wonder whether my Annihilation Lotus Flame or the Tian class Do technique is stronger. Xiao Yang blinked his eyes. A curiosity also rose within his heart. Bang! This entire sky suddenly erupted into a slight ripple while Xiao Yang was quietly thinking within his heart. The eyes of countless number of people suddenly turned towards the sea of bones. Some ripples had already been formed in the space there. The ancient remains was finally going to see the light of day again. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.